All right, I just want to follow up on a video I did a week or so ago about fasteners, the bolt part of the fastener. And you can look that up on the channel. Great information, a basic video on grades, threads, finishes. So look that up. Today we're going to focus on the other part of the word fastener. You got the bolt, but then you need to be able to fasten something together. So to do that, you got to have the hex nut. So we're going to focus on the hex nut today. And the main issue about a hex nut is fastening it together, being able to have the hex nut stay put and not back itself off by vibration or movement or whatever like that. So when you use a regular hex nut, and this one here just happens to be a grade 5, we're not going to touch a lot on grades today. You can go back to the bolt video to watch that or learn about that. But to stop from backing off, that regular hex nut is 9 times out of 10 used with a lock washer. When you fasten it together, this springed split washer gives a little bit of tension on the hex nut, and the whole concept of that is it helps the nut from wanting to backspin off over time. Grade 8, just to show it, point it out, they're out there. Once again, this is a basic video, guys, so if you know a lot about nuts and bolts, you'll just be laughing about this, so move on. The other, fasteners, you're fastening things together, but there's times that you want that thing that you're fastening, or you're wanting it to be able to turn. I'm going to use a kid's toy where you might have a wheel that wants to rotate, so you don't want to tighten the nut all the way tight because then it won't obviously move. So that's when you do want to use a Nylock. You can also use a Nylock to fasten something together totally and eliminate the lock washer. Perfectly fine, especially when there's room issues, you don't have enough clearance or whatever. But most of the time, a Nylock is going to be used when you need wiggle room for whatever is between the head of the bolt and the hex nut. So once again, you got your nylon insert in there, which grabs a hold of the threads of the bolt, and the bottom looks like a regular hex nut. Now they do make a grade 8 version of that. I don't remember when they started doing it. I believe they were around when I started in this business in the early 90s. Once again, the bottom looks the same, top with the nylon. I believe to make it a grade 8, it's a harder nylon that bites into the material. I've always been told that these are non-reusable. You cannot reuse these. People do all the time, but when I've always been taught, they've not been a reusable fastener, because what happens is your threads cut into this nylon, so you eventually lose your bite. Okay, perfect example of the basics of the hex nuts. And then you get into like when you really want to hold something together, and a lot of tensile strength is involved. You don't need to use a lock washer with these, but you could. I don't know why you'd want to, but they're a grade C, so it kind of goes away from the grade 5, grade 8 thing. But they're grade C lock nut, but they're called out there as a cone head. They're also called, the most popular name for them is a top lock. And once again, just like the Nylock, the bottom looks just like a regular hex nut. You can see the cone, and then if you look real close in the center where the threads are, that's not a perfect circle. And the reason why is in 3 spots, they crimp it in the middle in, so when you tighten this on a bolt, it goes on real easy until it hits about 3/4 of the way up. And then those indentations, the metal to metal threads kick in and tighten up really tight. And these are really tough to put on by hand. They can be done that way, but most of the time you're going to need to have an impact to get these things to go on. And these, I've always been told you can reuse, because yeah, you're running it onto a bolt, but the threads are only expanding out, and that's what's giving you your bite. So technically, if you take it off, it's going to go back to its normal shape. So just like I said, don't really need to know that information, but yeah, these technically can be reused. These I would not want to reuse. But, and like I said, these are really great fasteners. They can be easily used with a grade 8, and you will have a great fastening system. And they are tough to back off, especially if they've been on there a long time. So with the bolt video, as well with the bolt video, we talked about threads. I just wanted to point that out. You know, more threads per inch. A traditional, I think I talked about 3/8 back in the bolt video. 3/8 16 was coarse threads, 16 threads per inch. 3/8 24 threads per inch. So obviously with the fine thread bolt, you're going to want a fine thread. You're going to need a fine thread nut. And there's your concept where this goes together. You got more threads touching the bolt, so it's going to give it more of an opportunity not to back off on its own. I still would recommend using a lock washer with them, but I have a lot of people that say they don't use them because the threads are so close together that when you bring your material together, they're going to stay put. Okay. With that said, they do make obviously a Nylock. I believe they do make a no grade fine thread. We don't sell them, but here's a grade 8 version. And once again, this would just give you the same concept. If you need the wiggle room, but you got a lot more tension going on, you'd want to use a grade 8, you know, but same thing. You could bolt it all the way down and use it as a regular bolt minus the lock washer, or you can back it off and have wiggle room where a tire can spin or whatever, a bearing or whatever. So that's where that goes. And then once again, a fine thread top lock. And I have customers all the time ask me, what's the strongest fastener out there? And I'd have to say it would be this fine thread top lock with a grade 8 or higher grade fine thread bolt. Because once again, you got the fine threads, which are more threads per inch that are biting whatever you're putting together. And you got the grade, a grade 8 bolt with the grade C, which is equivalent to, don't take me to task on this, but it's equivalent to a grade 8 in my mind. So that would be the tightest, strongest fastener would be the grade 8 fine thread, top lock, and bolt, in my opinion. Okay. Now, once again, for the basic do-it-yourselfer, you're never going to go that direction. Very little times will you even see a top lock. You're going to see basically this all the time. And then, of course, you got the flat washers, which is just really common. If you don't know about flat washers, then you really need to go back to basics of the nuts and bolts. But hope this video helps you out, and I appreciate you watching them. Please subscribe, and we will talk to you later. Bye.